Sam had been wandering the palace of Ate for 43 minutes, trying to find the power grid. Already, he was convinced of two things. The palace had more corridors than a nebula has stars, and whoever designed it had never carried a toolbox through 3 kilometers of polished royal flooring. Towers curved upward like spirals of glass and crystal. Soft blue energy lines pulsed beneath the transparent floors. Guards, tall, elegant humanoids with ears curved like blades, passed silently. Sam's boots echoed like a drum, and he cursed under his breath. First day, perfect. Ahead, a massive archway led to an enormous room. Pillars stretched to a ceiling lost in light. Star-shaped chandeliers floated, glowing softly. In the center, a chair sat on a raised platform. Not just any chair, a throne of layered crystal metal, shimmering between silver and violet. Definitely not a power generator, Sam muttered. He climbed up and lowered himself onto the chair. After hauling his toolbox through half the palace, comfort felt miraculous. He leaned back, closing his eyes. Finally, a break. He was so absorbed in adjusting his translator device that he didn't notice the procession. Alien nobles, commanders, and scholars entered the throne room expecting the daily royal assembly. They froze. And then, they rose. Sam blinked. "Hi," he said awkwardly. "Nothing." He stood, ready to apologize. But before he could move, the massive doors opened again, and a presence filled the room. Queen Rayla herself. She walked calmly, her layered metal garment glowing softly, ears curving elegantly beside her dark hair. "Your Majesty," Sam whispered, standing fully. Rayla stopped, gazed at him, then at the standing court. She nodded once. The nobles slowly sat a day. Sam realized with dawning horror. By sitting in the throne, he had triggered an ancient imperial succession protocol. "Human Sam," a scholar began cautiously, "if you sit upon the throne before the sovereign enters, fate may claim you as co-ruler until the trial concludes." "I just needed a chair," Sam said desperately. The scholar ignored him. Queen Rayla remained calm, studying the human with curiosity rather than anger. He was confused, dusty, panicked, but undeniably human. The trial was simple in theory: reveal something meaningful about leadership or authority. In practice, it meant Sam was now co-ruler until the court decided his fate. He was escorted to a circular chamber with holographic star maps, advisory engineers, military strategists, and scholars. Everyone waited, tense, while he insisted he just wanted to fix things. Sam immediately noticed inefficiencies: energy grids between star systems losing 43% of power due to mismanaged relays, air filtration at 32% efficiency, ancient communications lines carrying data for the entire palace. He climbed ladders, crawled through service tunnels, and tapped glowing conduits. "Someone needed to fix this," he muttered. His suggestions were initially ignored. Then, engineers discovered he was right. Simply repairing the system solved months of political disputes. Queen Rayla observed quietly, impressed. "You approach governance as if it is a machine," she said. "Yes," Sam shrugged. "Machines break. You fix them. You don't argue about it for 6 months." The Queen laughed quietly. So did some engineers. The nobles were baffled. Sam had inadvertently demonstrated leadership, solving real problems without ambition or ego. Sam took a deep breath as he stared at the throne. For the past 2 weeks, he had carefully avoided chairs. Today, that lesson would be put to the ultimate test. The historian had gestured at him politely, but there was no mistaking the weight behind the words. "Human Sam, reveal the nature of leadership." He blinked slowly. Leadership. He had spent the last 2 weeks climbing into ceiling tunnels, recalibrating energy grids, and arguing with floating drones. Leadership sounded suspiciously like arguing over who got the biggest chair. "Okay," he said cautiously, "but does this include arguing with wires and relays, or is this more like court stuff?" Queen Rayla's eyes twinkled faintly, a quiet amusement hidden behind her composure. "Leadership is revealed," she said softly, "through understanding, not ambition." Sam raised an eyebrow. Understanding, not ambition. That sounded promising. He glanced at the court. Dozens of alien nobles, military commanders, and scholars waited with glowing tablets and floating projections. Each was poised, serious, and intensely formal. He straightened his back, adjusted his dusty tool belt, and took a single step forward. The throne room was enormous. Crystal pillars reached toward a ceiling that shimmered with faint starlight. Chandeliers floated like miniature constellations, casting pale violet light across the marble floor. Sam's boots echoed slightly, and a few older nobles muttered in quiet disapproval. He cleared his throat. "All right, so, leadership." Sam paused. "From my experience," he began, "a system only works if all the parts are functioning. And if one part breaks, the rest can fail spectacularly." He glanced at the Queen, then at the court. "So maybe, leadership is like maintenance. You don't worry about looking important. You worry about making sure nothing explodes." Murmurs spread quietly through the court. One of the engineers nodded eagerly. Another noble whispered something to his neighbor. Queen Rayla leaned slightly forward, resting her chin against her hand. "Go on," she said, calm but attentive. Sam adjusted the strap of his wrist tablet. "For example," he continued, "last week, there was a 6-month trade dispute between two systems. Nobody could figure out why there were power shortages. I checked the relays. One small misalignment, 20 circuits failing, half the Empire's network whining in the dark." Several engineers blinked, realizing he was recounting events they had all witnessed firsthand. Sam smiled faintly. "I fixed it in 10 minutes. No meetings. No arguments. Just wires. And now everyone's happy, and the fleets can talk to each other again." Queen Rayla's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. Sam's eyes widened. He had made the Queen smile. That was new. "So," he continued carefully, "maybe the point of leadership isn't sitting on a throne or passing laws. Maybe it's making sure the stuff that matters doesn't fall apart while everyone else argues about who gets to talk first." The historian shifted in his robes, murmuring into a data tablet. Several nobles leaned forward. Even the younger scholars paused, pens hovering over floating writing pads. "Interesting," Rayla said finally. "You define leadership by efficiency rather than power." "Efficiency," Sam said cautiously. "Yes. Keep the oxygen flowing, the power stable, the messages delivered. People don't need grand speeches. They need things to work." The court was silent. A few nobles exchanged glances. Then a military commander raised a long finger. "But human Sam," he said slowly. "What of ambition? Of authority? Surely a leader must make decisions that others fear to make." Sam shook his head. "Fear doesn't fix a broken conduit." He glanced around, hoping the point would land. "If your reactor grid blows up because someone wanted to show authority, congratulations. You just ruled yourself into chaos." Queen Rayla's eyes sparkled faintly. "You do not seek power," she said softly. "Yet you act decisively." Sam nodded. "Exactly. I fix things. That's it. If fixing things makes me co-ruler, fine. But I don't want it. I want to make sure the air filters work." There was a quiet pause. Several scholars scribbled notes. The court seemed to collectively rethink its expectations. One older archivist whispered to his neighbor, "Perhaps the ancient law is testing character." Sam grinned faintly. "You got it," he said. "And I don't cheat. I can't even sit on a chair anymore." Rayla rose from her seat gracefully, moving toward the massive doors of the throne room. "Then let this trial conclude," she said. "Human Sam, you may remain among us, not as an emperor of ambition, but as an arbiter of stability." The historian stepped forward, silver staff in hand. "The trial period concludes," he announced. "Human Sam has demonstrated leadership through understanding and action, without desire for personal power. By ancient law, he is cleared." Sam blinked. Cleared. That was it. No grand ceremony. No coronation. He had expected at least fireworks or floating banners. Thanks," he said softly. Queen Rayla stepped closer. "You may return to your maintenance," she said. Your presence in court is no longer required, except when your judgment is needed for critical matters. Sam nodded quickly. Understood. He glanced at his wrist tablet. Which, judging by this, is pretty much always. The court began to disperse, nobles and scholars muttering quietly about the strange human who had accidentally redefined leadership. Sam exhaled. Finally, he could go back to crawling through tunnels, recalibrating relays, and arguing with drones. The palace felt lighter somehow. Not empty, but less tense. Less like a machine on the brink of chaos. A small floating drone beeped beside him. Congratulations, human, it said in its polite mechanical tone. You have achieved high recognition without ambition. Sam chuckled softly. Yeah, that's very me. He climbed into a maintenance tunnel, scanning the walls with his handheld device. The palace corridors stretched endlessly, glowing panels pulsing softly beneath his boots. Several hours later, Sam emerged near the outer wing, where the air filtration systems hummed quietly. He checked the readings. 99.8% efficiency. Good. Perfect. He adjusted a loose panel, tapped the console, and nodded. All right. Another crisis averted. A shadow fell across the corridor. Sam looked up. Queen Rayla stood there, her hands clasped lightly, eyes studying him with quiet curiosity. You have a unique perspective, she said. Not many see governance as a system to be maintained. Sam shrugged. Well, you asked for help, not politics, he said. I fix problems. That's my thing. Rayla smiled faintly. And yet, that is exactly why the Empire listens. Sam blinked. Wait, so you're saying I'm influential? Influence is not the same as power, she said softly. You have shown that wisdom often comes from unexpected sources. Even from someone who does not seek the throne. Sam grinned, realizing for the first time in days that he might actually like the absurdity of his position. Good. Because the last thing I want is more responsibility than a toolbox and a maintenance schedule. She studied him for a moment, then stepped aside. Then continue your work, human Sam. The Empire is, for now, in capable hands, yours and mine. Sam watched her walk away, then glanced at the glowing corridor ahead. The tunnels beckoned like veins of light waiting to be untangled, humming with the quiet promise of problems that only he could solve. He took a deep breath, adjusted his tool belt, and began to move. Another broken relay, another malfunctioning filter, another mystery in the palace that only a human could untangle. And for the first time, Sam didn't feel overwhelmed. He felt ready. The accidental co-ruler, the human who never wanted to rule, crawled into the next tunnel. Somewhere deep inside the glowing corridors of the Palace of a faint laugh echoed, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and the quiet thrill of chaos finally being under control. And somewhere, in the distant reaches of the alien empire, the message spread: a human technician, small and unassuming, had redefined leadership, not with ambition, but with action.